Welcome to the Planning to Action Climate Toolkit tutorial video. I'm Taylor Throwe, a project partner at Throwe Environmental, LLC. The Planning to Action Climate Toolkit, or PACT, was developed to help guide communities through the process of acting on climate resilience, moving them along from the earlier planning stages towards on-the-ground implementation. This toolkit was developed by Throwe Environmental through the company's role as a core partner organization in the Southeast New England Program Network. This toolkit is an adaptation of the US Climate Toolkit, originally developed by the US Global Change Research Program. By expanding on the US Climate Toolkit, our tool serves as a resource for communities across the country as they take meaningful action to tackle climate change. PACT is comprised of 4 distinct but interrelated tools: the Community Overview Tool, the Climate Priority Tool, the Action Evaluation Tool, and the Resilience Finance Tool. As communities proceed through the different tools in this kit, they will establish a resilience baseline, identify climate priorities, assess the best action to address those priorities, and develop a strategy for sustainably paying for climate action. This video walks us through the first 3 tools of PACT. Tool 4 is still in development and should be finalized by spring 2022. The data currently displayed in the tool is for demonstration purposes only and does not reflect any individual community. With that, let's begin our walkthrough of the Planning to Action Climate Toolkit. We'll start with Tool 1, the Community Overview Tool. This tool consists of only one step, the Resilience Capacity Review. This resource is a short, structured Q&A that allows the community to aggregate some relevant resilience information before diving into the more detailed components of the toolkit. Here, we consider how communities are defining resilience challenges, prioritizing and acting on climate, moving towards sustainable financing, and optimizing their own performance. This Q&A pulls together a baseline or foundation that will draw on for the remainder of the toolkit. In our example, the town would simply enter their answers next to each of the 10 questions. Now we'll move on to Tool 2, the Climate Priority Tool, which begins with a hazards inventory that allows communities to aggregate information on climate hazards. Today we'll focus on 3 potential hazards facing a community: coastal flooding, sea level rise, and erosion. For this example, the town would manually type those 3 hazards into column A. Next, the team would go through column by column, inputting additional information such as reference documents, problem areas, and historic and future impacts. Towards the right of this table, they would then select each hazard's probability of occurrence from the drop-down menu. Finally, any additional notes could be entered into the notes column. Before we move on, notice that scrolling to the right reveals step-by-step instructions, key questions and definitions, and troubleshooting tips. This additional information is available on every step in all of the tools in this toolkit, in case users get stuck or need some additional guidance. Let's move on to Step 2-2 of the Climate Priority Tool. This hazard asset assessment allows the community to focus on the problem areas that they previously input in the beginning of Tool 2. As you'll notice, these problem areas have already been brought over automatically from the last tab. Now you'll see them in column B. To complete this step, they would record the assets and infrastructure at risk in each problem area. Next, the team would rank each area's relative vulnerability using the low, medium, or high drop-down menus. We can do the same with risk, which is split here into magnitude of consequence and probability of occurrence. Together, risk and vulnerability make up relative priority, which automatically calculates. Wrapping up Tool 2, we will move on to what we call the Climate Priority Snapshot. There's no information to input here, as the sheet fills out automatically with all of the data that the team has already included. The purpose of this tab is to give the team a printable output that ranks each of the problem areas that are threatened by a specific natural hazard, based on each area's relative priority level. As you can see, this community's problem areas/assets are sorted by priority level in column K. The highest priorities rise to the top, while the lower priorities move to the bottom, allowing the decision makers to focus on their most acute needs. The third tool begins with brainstorming the project portfolio. You'll notice all of the information that we've aggregated in the previous steps carry over, minimizing the workload on the town. You'll also notice that the medium and low priority problem areas have been dropped off on this tab. The town is now tasked with brainstorming potential mitigation strategies for each of the higher priority areas. This information is input manually and sets up the next step in this tool, which focuses on these mitigation action details. Using columns L, M, and N, the town would input up to 3 mitigation strategies to address the problems they identified previously. In the next step, we will fill in more details around each of the action items that we just brainstormed. These details include cost estimates, timeframes, and responsible parties. This information is crucial in making sure that action items are specific, reasonable, and delegated. Finally, in 3-3, Alternatives Evaluation, we evaluate each of the different proposed actions against each other. In this step, we focus more on how each action fares against the different metrics that are important to the community. Are the action's environmental, social, and economic implications positive, neutral, or negative? And how easily feasible is each action? The community will use the drop-downs to fill in these columns. Each cell corresponds with a point, and those points tally up to give each action a total score. The actions with the highest scores rise to the top, leaving the community with a clear hierarchy of potential alternatives. With that, we've made it through the first 3 tools of the Planning to Action Climate Toolkit. Tool 1 helped to establish a baseline picture of community resilience. Tool 2 helped us determine what a community's greatest climate needs are by aggregating hazard information and using vulnerability and risk to determine highest priorities. Tool 3 takes those priorities and turns the conversation towards actions. Communities can brainstorm and provide detail on actions before ranking them against each other and determining where to focus implementation. And as we develop the 4th tool for this kit, those highest scoring action items will be further explored within the context of sustainable climate financing, what we believe to be the vehicle for successful climate action. If you have any questions or would like additional information about the toolkit, please send us a message. I hope you found this tutorial helpful